Hello and welcome. Wars are not always won by the side with the better weapons. One example is the War of Vietnam. In 1939, the German Luftwaffe had superior numbers of aircraft compared to the British, yet were defeated in the Battle of Britain. Why? The Luftwaffe was led by World War I ace Hermann Goering, whose nickname was Der Dicker, the Fat One. Bolstered by what the Luftwaffe had achieved in Poland and France, a boastful Goering promised Hitler that with a week of good weather he would knock over the RAF and England would be ripe for invasion. What they didn't take into account was that the southeast of England was the best protected airspace in the world at that time. This was thanks to the foresight of Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding, Air Officer commanding RAF Fighter Command during the Battle of Britain. A Dow Scotsman whose nickname was Stuffy, Dowding was an officer in the British Army in the 1900s and early 1910s. He became interested in aviation and so joined the Royal Flying Corps at the start of the First World War. Dowding gained aviator certificate number 711 in December 1913 in a Vickers biplane at the Vickers School of Flying in Brooklands. That was followed by training at the Central Flying School. He went on to serve as a fighter pilot and then as commanding officer of No. 16 Squadron in the RAF. During the interwar years, he held several important posts including defence, offence and supply. He displayed a great capacity for understanding technical matters, although he didn't have a scientific or technical training. In 1936, Dowding was appointed chief of the newly created RAF Fighter Command. He didn't agree with British Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin's 1932 declaration that the bomber will always get through. His management of RAF resources and the detailed preparations of Britain's air defences, notably the coastal radar network, was crucial. This network became known as the Dowding System. The integrated air defence system included radar, whose potential Dowding was amongst the first to appreciate, human observers who filled crucial gaps in what radar was capable of detecting at that time, such as identifying aircraft and the height at which they were flying, raid plotting and control of aircraft using VHF radio, which the Luftwaffe didn't have at that time. The whole network was linked by dedicated telephone cables buried deep to provide protection against bombing. The network had its centre at RAF Bentley Priory, a converted country house on the outskirts of London. The system later became known as Ground Control Interception and was perhaps the world's first analogue intranet. Truly, the Battle of Britain was fought as much on the ground as it was in the air. Dowding introduced modern aircraft during the pre-war period, which included the 8-gun Spitfire and Hurricane. Fighter planes were equipped with bulletproof windshields because he had pressured the Air Ministry. Dowding was known for his humility and great sincerity. Fighter command pilots came to characterise Dowding as one who cared for his men and had their best interests at heart. Dowding often referred to his pilots as dear fighter boys and as his chicks. Indeed, his son Derek was one of them. British pilots didn't have to fly standard patrols as radar predicted attacks. This conserved fuel and the pilots' energies. It was his subordinate, New Zealander Air Vice Marshal Keith Park from Uxbridge Control, who directed fighters to the sectors to meet the oncoming enemy. His tactical work was exemplary. Dowding subsequently came into conflict with proponents of the big wing tactic, most notably Trafford Leigh-Mallory and Douglas Bader. This, together with criticism of the RAF's night-time defence during the Blitz, led to his eventual downfall. In November 1940, Dowding was replaced in command by Sholto Douglas, another big wing advocate. Dowding retired from the Royal Air Force in July 1942 and was made a peer in June 1943. A statue of Dowding stands outside St Clement Danes Church on the Strand in London. The inscription reads in part, "His wise and prudent judgment and leadership helped to ensure victory against overwhelming odds and thus prevented the loss of the Battle of Britain and probably the whole war. To him, the people of Britain and the free world owe largely the way of life and the liberties they enjoy today." Goering believed that defeating the RAF was inevitable, just part of a plan. However, the British were fighting for survival. In this, they were helped by Goering's bad decisions, such as, he said an airfield should not be bombed on consecutive days. It was Goering who said that they should now bomb cities, not airfields. This was a monumental mistake. Ordering his fighter escorts to stay close to bombers and so taking away the advantages fighters had of height and speed. One Battle of Britain pilot said, "I wasn't fighting for king and country, I was fighting for my mother. I wouldn't let the buggers invade my country." The Battle of Britain wasn't the end of World War II. That would happen elsewhere. Thank you for watching.